Awesome. Okay, well, thank you, Christine. Yes, so today we're gonna be doing some scallion sesame eggs. This is something I just kind of happened upon because I was thinking about different ways to make eggs sometimes because I love having sunny side up eggs. They're my favorite kind, just salt, pepper, whatever seasoning I feel like. I'll usually do that. But this time I was like, man, I have all these scallions in the fridge and I just figured out, here, I'll show you this new way that you could store them, which is just in like water like this, and it'll keep in the fridge for several days. And I was like, what am I going to do with these scallions? I usually don't have problems using scallions up because they're one of my favorite things, but I had them and I was like, I guess I could make something with that. I saw something online about like, what was it called? I think it was called like scallion omelet pancakes. So they were flat like pancakes, but like in between an omelet and this, but then it was almost layered one on top of the other. And I was like, I'm not going to make like 7 omelets and then layer them and cut. It just felt like too much work for me. So I was like, what else can I do with scallions and eggs as a starting point? So that's how I came up with this. So I'm going to show you all of the ingredients that you're going to need for this. So let me just point you down here. I have them arranged right here. So we're going to first use some canola oil or vegetable oil, just something that has I think a high smoke point is what you want so that it doesn't burn right away when you put something in. We're going to, of course, start by sauteing some onions that I've diced. I have onions in almost everything. I'm also going to be adding pepper. I'm going to be adding some jalapenos. This is like one very large jalapeno that I've just roughly chopped. You can add a spicier pepper if you'd like. You could leave this out. You can take the seeds out to reduce the heat. You can also not use this at all and use red pepper flakes if you'd like, or a different source of heat if you don't want to use jalapenos. I also have some garlic. These are about 3 very big cloves, diced or kind of minced, but not completely small like I usually do. And of course, the star of the show, we have scallions. So what we have here, we actually have like 6 scallions right here. So it's a lot of them, some smaller, some larger. It's a mix of the white, light green, and the dark parts. So all of it is in here. And since the white parts are a little bit tougher than the green parts, yes, that does mean they might cook a little bit quicker. But again, I'm looking for that texture here. And as you'll see, we're cooking things in the wok. So everything's going to be cooked on high heat very fast. Oops. What I also have is just the green parts of a scallion, which this one you'll notice I've chopped it a little bit bigger and at an angle. That's because we're going to be using it at the very end as a garnish. So if we're using this as a garnish at the end, you want to be able to bite into it a little bit. Also this nice green color. Typically I would add something like cilantro at the end, but here, because the whole thing is a scallion pancake, why not add some of it that is going to be cooked in the wok with the eggs, and then some of it at the very end fresh. So just to recap, we have onions, jalapenos, garlic, scallion, more scallion for garnish. That's all we've gone through so far. And then I'm also going to be adding towards the very end a little bit of sesame oil. The sesame in this dish comes from 2 places. So one of them is from the oil itself. Then the other bit is going to be at the very end. I'm going to be adding some toasted sesame seeds for some crunch and some extra sesame flavor. So I'm doing something that I enjoy doing in a lot of my dishes, which is introducing similar flavors in multiple modes. So that oniony flavor is coming from the scallions, but it's also coming from the onions themselves. The sesame flavor is coming from the oil, and it's also coming from the seeds. And then I'm bringing in some heat with the jalapenos, but I personally like my dishes to be pretty spicy. So I'm not only going to be adding jalapenos, I'm also going to be adding some crushed red pepper flakes to it. Again, feel free to omit depending on your spiciness tolerance, I guess. Other things that make this one kind of unique and give it more of an Asian twist other than the sesame is soy sauce. You're not going to add too much of this, but just a little bit at the end, not enough to completely change the color of the eggs. Like I don't want kind of dark brownish looking eggs at the end, but we will add some, which will not just add the salt, but it also adds some umami to all of it. A note about soy sauce, I might have mentioned this in one of my old earlier classes. There are so many kinds of soy sauce, and I don't just mean light and dark and regular. My favorite kind is, I'll have to look up the brand, but it's a mushroom soy sauce that I started using, which I really enjoy, but I ran out of that. So I'm going to be using this light soy instead. And of course, salt and pepper. And then maybe an ingredient you wouldn't expect because we're using all these Asian ingredients. I'm going to add a little bit of cheese in there to give it a little bit of creaminess. So you might wonder, like, how is the soy going to go with the cheese? It's going to go great. This is unlike some of the things I've shown on here. This is actually a dish I have made before. So I remember I did.
This is tried and tested, folks.
This is tried and tested. I made it twice. So that's a big deal for me. And I'm pretty sure last time I did something different. I think I like added ginger to it. And I decided the ginger flavor didn't go well in there for me at the time. It could have been anything from like the ginger itself to how I chopped the ginger. I'm very particular about ginger being cut or minced super, super, super fine because I do not like to bite into chunks of it. So it could have been that. Okay. And then, and of course, the eggs. So I have like 7 eggs in here that I've just cracked. I just cracked them. They're sitting here. Luckily for, at least I think, for cooking versus baking, I don't need to take the eggs out like an hour in advance and wait for them to come to room temperature and all of that. I can just kind of take them out and they're ready when I am. So it's really important for this dish to have everything prepared and chopped and kind of within arm's length. I guess like actual chefs who do this and who cook every day and cook for large numbers of people, or I know are very particular about having their mise en place and having all the things lined up and the right quantities so they can pick from it. I don't typically cook like that. I just chop one thing while it's cooking. I prepare the other thing. I don't keep everything ready except for this class. But for this one, whenever I make this, I do, because if you don't, something is going to burn in the wok, right? The purpose of the wok is to cook things really fast and cook it at high heat. And it gives you a nice, like, curved surface area here, I guess. So you want to maximize that and you'll see how quickly all of this comes together. So, all right, let's get started. I'm going to pull this over, show you the wok. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Great. Okay. So I'm going to turn this on. High heat. I do want it to get pretty hot. I've tried making this in just like a regular saucepan and stuff, but I think with the amount of things in there and how you want to be scrambling the eggs, this actually works really, really well. In the meantime, I'm going to just whisk up my eggs. And I just realized what I also like doing is adding a little bit of milk into these eggs. So I'm just going to go grab the milk really quick. I'm going to be adding that in to just give it a little more creaminess, a little more fluff, I guess. All right, here's the eggs. I'm just gonna, not too much, just like that. That's maybe like 3 to 4 tablespoons or so. And then I'm just gonna whisk this over here. You know, scrambled eggs were something that I always enjoy eating when I go out to restaurants. But whenever I tried to make it at home, they'd get way too dry because I'd overcook them. You know, I'd be afraid of, oh, it still looks a little watery, or maybe it's not cooked all the way. But that's precisely what I like at restaurants, is when it's not dry and when it isn't super watery. Okay, I'm just gonna whisk this up until this is getting pretty hot already. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. And then once this is whisked, you actually don't put the eggs in first. The eggs are one of the last things to go in. It's a very satisfying and also gross sound.
It's, yeah, there is something very, very like relaxing about the sound.
But it's also
it makes you think of like early mornings and stuff, you know, just starting
yeah.
out the day.
Okay, this looks great. Here we go. Okay, beating the eggs. Let's see. Beating the eggs. I'm going to take you back over here to look at that. Yep, that's getting pretty hot. And you'll see, because right when I put the oil in there, it'll start to show you that it's hot. You can see this is like a non-stick wok too, which is, yeah, you definitely want to use something non-stick for this. Don't try making eggs in regular stick pans and it's not great. Okay, so I am pretty convinced that this is hot. I can already see some ripples in the oil. So I'm going to go ahead and add, first of all, my onions. You want to hear the sizzle. If you don't hear the sizzle, it's not hot enough. Okay. And as soon as you put it in, you want to keep stirring it around. So I'm going to get the oil kind of coated in the onions, or the onions coated with the oil. You don't want them to, you know, just some of them to absorb all the oil. Often this is all it takes to make someone ask what I'm cooking. Like just the smell of onions alone is sufficient. Turn up the heat a little bit. Okay. I'm getting the next thing ready. Next, I'm going to add in the jalapenos. And for scrambled eggs, I do like chopping the onions, or I like dicing them pretty small. But you can slice them lengthwise too if you like. Okay, I'm going to season with just a little bit of salt and pepper here, but not too much because we are going to add some soy sauce later. So there's the pepper and salt. Okay. The next thing that's going to go in here is the garlic. You can see how fast I'm adding these. Like usually I'll kind of wait for one thing to soften. I'll wait for the next thing to bloom. Here I'm just adding them in pretty quick. Still not adding the garlic at the very beginning because I don't want it to burn in this high heat. It's remarkable how quickly is it regular yellow onion? Yes, it's just a regular onion. I've tried using like the sweet onion variety in this. I'm not a fan of how the sweet onion tastes with the egg.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now I'm noticing I want a little bit more oil in here because I haven't added the scallions in yet. So I'm just gonna do a quick drizzle. That's not too much. That's maybe like a teaspoon or two right now. And that'll again keep this from burning. You can see I'm just moving it around. And I can tell the onions have already softened. They're starting to get a little bit, little golden brown. Next thing I'm going to add in is the green onions, the light green, the white, and the dark green parts. A lot of green so far. And this is something that's a very, very quick, I've made this for dinner before. Of course, also great for breakfast if you don't feel like making a regular omelet or a frittata. I think I made a frittata, right, Christine? I think
you did do a frittata. You did the frittata, I think, like around Thanksgiving or the holidays.
Yeah, right. Okay. And that's basically all the veggies that are gonna go in here. And now what I'm gonna do, actually, I'm gonna move all of the veg over to one side, turn down the heat a little bit. So when I'm putting in the egg in, I wanna turn the heat down. So you can see how all of the veg are off on one side and it leaves me the space right here. I'm gonna use that space to pour in the egg, because when I'm scrambling, I wanna kinda let it set a little bit and then break it apart. And then I'll eventually mix it in with the veggies. So let's pour this in. Cool. Put it all in at once. Okay. I watch YouTube videos of people making scrambled eggs. It's just so satisfying to watch them like fold it and wrap it and then like break it up. I haven't quite gotten to the point where I can do art with my eggs, but I could do this, right? Okay, and then every once in a while, I'm just kind of pushing down. You guys see that? I'm just kind of down from the edges and then just tilting it a little more, just to give more of the egg a chance to come in contact with the hot surface of the wok. And then just keep an eye on it, and every few seconds you could just kind of pull it down again. It's really important at this stage not to have the heat as high as it was before, or your eggs will cook way too fast, and then you're gonna end up with slightly dry eggs.
This is very satisfying to watch though, too.
Yeah. It's also so tempting. I mean, like patience is not one of my strong suits. So for something like this to like, you have to wait. I mean, can you imagine me with risotto? Like that's just
stir.
Because I like added things in and then I'm like, okay, it's surely done now, but you have to really with risotto, wait until everything is set. So you'll see I'm just going kind of in a wider and wider arc, I guess, to try to get more of the egg there. We don't have to do this all the way till the end when all of the liquid is, because as it gets heat, or until all of the liquid turns like this, because as the pot gets hotter and the egg sits there longer, the bottom parts of the egg are also going to be cooking. So you can see this edge. It's just all the bits that I've pushed down. Oh, and you can see the bottom, like how it's already starting to solidify. Okay. Still not having it on super high heat. It's like on a medium heat right
now. We just got the question, why are you going to wait until you mix it with the veggies?
So sometimes what happens is I've done it without mixing it before, and I feel like it just gets a little too eggy for me. I don't know how to explain it. Like I like having the veg not sit in the egg for too long before I eat it.
It's more like, if you do it this way, it's more like the onions are sitting with the eggs as opposed to being inside the eggs.
Yeah, so I like doing
or
this.
Or like coated in egg.
Yeah, and if I will mix it up, but that's a great question. Like when I do it that way, I've found that it's harder for me to kind of break up the scrambled egg. The pieces end up being more uneven. And I also find that when it's mixed with the veggies, I tend to just mess with it more than is needed, because I feel like I need to keep moving the veggies around as well, which you really don't. Okay, look at this. This is like turning into, if you just called this an omelet, like that would be fine. At this stage, if you're like, I just want to make a giant wok omelet and just fold this over, you could definitely do that. All right, so I'm almost about to call it because there's only a little bit left. I think this is probably the last batch that I'll do this to. Yeah, and this is cooking, and you can tell like as it gets hotter. Okay, now I'm going to turn the heat down even lower because I'm seeing the underside of the egg is starting to brown. And now I'm going to fully mix all of this in. To whoever was asking, now I'm going to start mixing it in. You can see some of the veggies get a nice like crisp on them too, which is, I guess, a happy side effect of this.
Yeah. You get some caramelization on those, the onions and scallions in there then while they sit there longer.
And now I'm completely mixing it up, breaking it up into small pieces. May not be the traditional way to make scrambled eggs, but works for me. And you'll see even now it's a little bit watery, right? So I've actually turned off the heat right now because I know there's enough heat in the wok for this to continue cooking. And I know that and the eggs are gonna absorb that heat from the pot. In fact, even if I put the eggs on a plate right now, they're gonna continue cooking. So I don't need to have the heat on. The heat is completely off right now. And we're almost done. We just have a couple more things to add. I've just broken this up. And this is a stage I wish, like I made like these masala eggs before, where instead of adding a bunch of Asian sauces and seasonings, I've instead just put in like Indian spices, you know, and turned them into masala eggs. Okay, so when you look at these scrambled eggs right now, you're fine, you could eat them. However, I'm now going to add a little bit of soy sauce. This happens to be light soy, but like I said, you could add a mushroom soy if you'd like. You can add a little bit of dark soy if you don't mind the coloring that it's going to give and the little bit of sweetness that it's going to give. And I'm also going to add a little bit of sesame oil. So a little bit of sesame oil goes a long way. You don't need a ton. Just a little drizzle. I'm also going to top it with red pepper flakes. Toss this. So it's really when you add the soy sauce and the sesame oil that I feel the true taste of these eggs comes to life, or the true intent of these eggs comes to life. So you can see there is some browning from the soy sauce, but that's okay. I guess if you don't want as much, again, with different kinds of soy sauces, you will see different levels of browning. Add these in. Now, I'm just going to do a really quick taste test, see if it needs a little more salt or if the salt from the soy sauce is enough. Okay, definitely needs some more salt. And actually, I'm also going to put in a little more sesame oil. Now, something like this would be great just on the side, on toast, on the side of like a bagel. And of course, if you want to make breakfast tacos, this is a great filling for that. Mm-hmm. If you want to add some meat to this, you can certainly put in like some ham or, yeah, I think ham or like pancetta in some way. You could do that. Here they are. Oh, I almost forgot. I don't think I mentioned this to you guys. I'm going to add a little splash of rice vinegar. So this is that gives it that nice. I was tasting it and I was like, it needs something else, something else. It's so
that acidity.
Yes, little bit of acidity. You don't have to go overboard, just a little bit, because if the eggs are really rich, you have a little bit of milk in there. You have the sesame oil in there. This is going to make it a little more bright. And it won't give you that kind of overwhelming feeling of, it won't make it too rich, I guess. Okay, now we're gonna do another taste test. Oh, great, okay. Last few things. We're gonna add in a little bit of cheese. So I mentioned we're gonna add cheese to these eggs. Here we go. I'm just sprinkling in some cheese. So this happens to be a nacho blend cheese. You can add other types if you want. So I also had some gorgonzola in the fridge and I was considering using that, but I didn't, because if you add gorgonzola, that's gonna, to me, is the primary thing that I taste. And for this, I really want the flavors to be more around the sesame and the scallions. Not too much cheese, just a little bit of blend. You can see it's like nice and elasticy in some places. Okay. Then we're gonna top this with the green parts of our scallion. And you'll see when you're eating this, the nice crunch from that. These are the little things I look for is there's so many rich things in here. So how can I break that richness in some way? And one way I do that is with the acid, with the rice vinegar. Another way I do that is with something fresh and something crunchy to introduce some variety into the texture that's there. Okay, and then the last bit is going to be some toasted sesame seeds. And then once I add these, I'm just gonna plate it and show you. Oh, I know she was there. Just gonna add some sesame seeds to it. Then I'll show you the final thing. It's right there. So you have the scrambled eggs with the scallions, with the sesame oil, little bit of cheese, and then finished with the sesame seeds. So let me just plate this up and I'm gonna eat it. And hope, whoa, oops. You guys see me still?
No, you disappeared.
Disappeared, I'll be
Here you
here.
are.
I'm also going to taste some of this. Just gonna put some in a plate. There, it just looks like that. And then I'm gonna try it. I wish you guys could try this because sometimes I'll have my, yeah. Very good. I mean,
Yeah,
I can't.
you need to invite someone over to be like your official taste tester sometime.
No, this is really great. It's
So Asaf's
yeah.
asking, what from all the ingredients gives it kind of a sweet taste?
If anything, the onions. You don't think of the onions as imparting any kind of sweet, not the scallions.
Yeah,
The
because the sesame is going to be like really nutty. Maybe a little bit of the rice wine vinegar, because it because vinegar is, has that relationship with wine and things like that. So sometimes there's a little bit of sweetness that comes through in there. So
yeah. So the sweet, I mean, if you wanted it to be a little bit sweeter, I would just say use the sweet onions, like use like sweet Vidalia onions or something like that. I'm trying to think how else you could. Sometimes if you really want, and this may not be the classic way to do it, but sometimes if you don't, not necessarily if you want it to be sweet, but if you want it to be not as, so Saf is asking, if you want it to be not as salty or not as vinegary, you can add like a teaspoon of sugar to it.
Yeah.
It won't come off as sweet eggs. It'll just come off as, there's something else in there that you can't put your finger on. Now, if you're making like chicken or you're making roasted vegetables and you're deglazing with wine and things like that, there as the wine kind of sits in the pot a little longer, it does caramelize and the sugars in the wine can give it a little bit of that sweetness, but it won't taste like straight sugar or straight honey at that point.
garnish with
Garnish
mandarin.
with mandarin oranges. I never tried that. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. It is a short class today, but this is like what we're gonna eat for dinner, and it's only 5 o'clock. So
You're ready now.
yeah.
Scrambled egg. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I would say if I had to change anything with this, I am finding that when I used that mushroom soy, it gave more flavor and less just straight saltiness like the soy sauce. So if you can find that mushroom soy, I highly recommend it. I can send you the one that I got, Christine, because you can use it in things other than these scrambled eggs. You don't just have to put them here. You can use them in lieu of soy sauce in various things. Like the bibimbap that I made, you could use the mushroom soy to make that sauce. And again, it's one of those things that you're like, what is that flavor? And it's a very particular thing that comes from a certain type of the sauce. So, all right, that's all I have. Anything else?
No, I think we're good. So
Okay.
just a reminder, thank you so much, Sruthi, as always. So much fun. That is such a great dish, and you can have it for breakfast, have it for dinner, have it for lunch. It works everywhere, fits in everywhere. Want to just remind everyone that coming up next Wednesday, we have our virtual wine tasting with Mary Ross. If anyone has not seen the wine recommendations for what we will be tasting, we'll be tasting 2 different wines, a Riesling and a Sauvignon Blanc. Yes, a Riesling and a Sauvignon Blanc. She made recommendations on what regions they should be from and also recommended specific wines. If anyone does not have that information and would like it to join us on Wednesday, please email me at taste@nl.edu and we will see you then. So thank you,
Bye, guys.
Sruthi. Have a great
Bye.
evening, everyone.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye.
Bye.